Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Many of the nonprofit organizations we work with have come to us at one point or another to discuss the possibility of improving the donor life cycle. We know how critical it is to have control over the financial and donor information that is your lifeblood. So we've asked someone who is an expert at helping nonprofit and faith-based organizations like yours to speak to us today. Kent Hallra is president of Orange Leap, which is a Dallas-based company founded in 2001 to energize nonprofits, making it easier for them to achieve mission success. I hope you are as excited as I am to learn how simplifying and streamlining the donor life cycle will help save nonprofits time and increase donor contributions. Kent is a great resource for nonprofit and faith-based organizations, so we know this webinar will contain a lot of meaningful information. Kent's also a very good personal friend of mine, and having known him for a while, I can share that earlier this week, he let us know that his number of grandchildren increased by one. So, Kent, I just wanted to say congratulations to that, and I'll turn it over to you to tell us more about capturing the heart of donors at every stage of the donor life cycle.
Well, thanks a lot, Brian, and thanks for the well wishes about the grandson. Yes, it was a great event for us. Number 4. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon I'm very pleased to be with you, and over the next 20 minutes or so, we want to talk about capturing the heart of your donor and how Orange Leap can help do that. We have 3 main areas that we want to discuss, and one is to show you how Orange Leap's business rules can really help automate your fundraising strategies through every stage of that life cycle. And we're going to talk about that life cycle in just a moment. And then we want to show you how dashboards, both in your accounting and financial system as well as in Orange Leap, can really give you that up-to-the-minute information that you need to run your organization and to help you implement those strategies that we'll talk about. And then finally, we'll finish with showing you the benefits of how a seamless integration of donor data into your financial system and makes life not only easier, but really provides you up-to-the-minute information that you can make decisions on and act on quickly. So with that, we'll get started. And I'm going to just pause for a second and let you take a look at this screen. And while you're doing that, I want to let you know who Nick Kristof is. Nick is a Pulitzer Prize-winning editor of the New York Times. He's got a number of other things that he's published. But this statement by him is one that really gave me pause when I saw it. And that's that toothpaste is oftentimes peddled with far more sophistication than all the world's life-changing causes. And I think that is a sad and yet mostly true statement. So at Orange Leap, we believe every person has the ability to inspire change and impact the lives of others. We believe nonprofits consist of extremely passionate people. Some of the most passionate people that I know are those that work at nonprofit organizations, and they are actively working to change lives for the better every day. And so what Orange Leap does is we build a technology to help nonprofits change more lives. We change lives by helping nonprofit organizations capture the heart of their donor at every stage of the donor life cycle. We talked about that just a few minutes ago. And we've identified 5 key areas that are involved in the donor life cycle. That's the acquisition of a new name, it's converting that name to a gift and then really getting that all-important second gift. It's the retention of the donor, keeping them in the loop and making sure that they're informed and being able to continue to get donations from them. However, we know that a certain number of them are going to lapse, and so we need to have strategies around that and how to get them back on board. And then certainly and clearly cultivating a donor to that key multi-year or major donor phase of the life cycle. And so on our next slide, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the timeline on some of that. And And really, this is kind of an example of a continuum here of new donors, so every part of this life cycle needs its own strategy. As an example, you wouldn't say the same thing to a donor who's been with you for 10 years as you would for somebody that's brand new. In a like manner, new donors, when they come in, we've found that for organizations that actually have a welcome series, they see an increase of 40 to 50% in their revenues over organizations that do not have a welcome series for their new donor. One thing that is also something that we found through our research is that if a new donor does not get a thank you within 72 hours, you're very likely to lose them as a donor. Lapsed donors, well, that's something that's it's just part of the fact of life here, but lapsed donors need a separate strategy based on how long that they've given versus when they gave their last gift. And then most organizations retain donors at the rate of about 40 to 50% of from their previous year. That's not really a very good number, and so we need to have strategies in place to make sure that that we move those numbers up. And then in that key multi-year stage, an organization should keep a key multi-year donor at the rate of 75%. 75% of those donors should continue on. So if an organization is not getting those kinds of numbers, we need to make sure that their strategy is in place. So these things are very hard to do unless you have a system that truly helps automate that strategy. And that's where Orange Leap's business rules and our dashboards come in. So now we'll take a little closer look about what I'm talking about. This is an example of an Orange Leap dashboard, and before I go too far into it, I want you to know that this dashboard can be customized to display just about anything you'd like for it to from the standpoint of your donor information. Basically, anything that you can report on can be sent to your dashboard so that you have it at a glance, and it can also be put in a graphical format the way that you see some of these things noted. One other point I'd like to make and point out is that you'll notice in the top right-hand corner of the screen it says search, and it says search constituents by text. There are a variety of different ways that you can search inside Orange Leap, and it works very similar to Google, and I'll show an example of that in a moment. But anything you can search on can also be placed on the dashboard. So if we kind of move up from the right bar chart, that's an example of a display of where all your donors are by location, by state, location. And if we were in a live system, we would simply click on those graphs and drill down into finding all of our donors in Texas, and then we could take that information and dig even deeper into it. On the far upper left-hand side, that is also a graph that will show you your gift tracking by date. It's very important to kind of get an idea of when gifts come in. This would be dynamically updated so that you could see as they're coming in daily, and so you can see whether you've got peak times of the month or valleys. And so in this particular case, there's definitely some peaks and valleys. And the last thing that I want to advantage of some of the mapping capabilities that are that mapping technology today that really allows us to do some interesting things in the nonprofit world. You'll notice the map, and it's displaying, what it's displaying there in those circles are constituents by location, and in a much more drilled down way than we did in the bar chart. And so what makes this fun is you can see how your constituents are clumped. And to me, that there are a number of ways that you can use that. One in particular is a very straightforward use of this, is that if you've got a major donor rep that's out in the field and they want to go call on their donors in an easy way, and they've got their smartphone or their tablet with them, and they can easily tap into Orange Leap, see where they are, and plan their day around that and plan accordingly when they're out in the field. The other way that I like to see this used is in what I call micro events. We all know about various types of fundraising events that organizations put on, and we, by the way, have an events module to help you manage that. But we also, what I like about this mapping capability is that there's a strategy that will allow you to put micro events on in a given area, and it's much easier to know where you might hold them if you've got information like this. And so the text that you see in the middle of the screen, we're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to talk more about that. What that is was a major donor query. And one of the things, if you'll recall, I mentioned that you can easily search throughout Orange Leap simply by typing in this example, major donor. You see that as the criteria. You could type in lapsed donor. You could type in just about anything, and based on what's in the system, it would pull it up. And so what you see here is a blow up very quickly, a display of all of your major donors. And so this could be placed on the dashboard the way that we had it on the previous screen. And this would be dynamically updated as people move to that next phase based on your business rules. And that's what we'll talk about next. So the business rules are, in my opinion, one of the most exciting things that Orange Leap has to offer, and one of the most powerful ways that we can really help you in your strategy throughout the donor life cycle. And so what you're viewing here is our friend Javier. This is a profile of a constituent page. And I want you to take your eye to the lower left-hand part of the screen where it says donor profile. And you'll see that Javier is designated as three different profiles. He's a major donor, he's a frequent donor, and while it probably would be an unusual circumstance for him to be both a major donor, a frequent donor, and a lapsed donor, it would be possible based on how you set up and established your business rules. And I'm simply showing them all as an example of what you can do and the way the system works. So the business rules work this way. If you will establish what you want your major donor amount to be. In our case, that number is $2,500 in this particular case, the way that we've set this up. Prior to the gift that he had given to Javier was at $2,100, and he gave a gift of $600 that put him over that $2,500 threshold. What the system will do automatically for you is automatically flag him as a major donor, and then it can kick off a whole series of events that you may choose in your strategy, whether it's to alert the executive director or the director of development through an alert or an email. It could kick off a letter that you want to send out to Javier, or a whole number of other kinds of things that you might put in place to reach out to major donors. We also would track frequent donors. Again, this is based on your criteria, how often somebody needs to give to become a frequent donor. In this case, I think we've set it up that if a donor has given 3 gifts in the span of 3 months, they would become a frequent donor. And so that, again, automatically places that from the business rule, would automatically keep track of that for you. And then a lapsed donor, which we've talked about earlier, very important that we find out when donors lapse. And it would be unusual probably for Javier to be a lapsed donor, but you could have a rule that says a lapsed donor is somebody who hasn't given something. And so if Javier gave early in the year but hasn't given in 6 months, we would want to perhaps reach out to him and find out what's happened. So again, very powerful. There's many more things that you can do with our business rules, but those are just some really great examples of what you can do. The next slide, I think, talks about how we do work with websites and your online giving. This is a sample of our online giving widget in our donor portal. One thing that I would want to make sure you know is that this would conform to your website. Your website, this would be just a part of your website. It would look like your website. But what's exciting is that it's actually a snippet of Orange Leap that's residing on your website. And the reason that's important is that when our giving widget, the gift is automatically, and the information is automatically sent into Orange Leap There's no importing of data at a later time. It automatically goes into Orange Leap, and it kicks off those business rules that I talked about before. Regardless of where the source comes from, when a gift enters Orange Leap, it kicks off the business rules. So with that, let's take a look at the next slide. And this is simply an example of the kinds of gifts and donations that we track. It's obviously we take gifts and recurring gifts, pledges, but we also can manage gifts in kind and soft gifts, which are often very important for nonprofit organizations. And you'll also notice there that there's a gift summary tab. That allows you to instantly get gift history information on your constituent. And so it's a great tool to have at your fingertips. A key component of most nonprofit organizations is leveraging relationships of existing donors or existing constituents, whether it be volunteers or whatever. You want to know who people know so that you can reach out to them. And so we make that very easy for you. In this particular case, this is Javier's wife, Gloria, which obviously would be part of head of household and part of the marital status. We also see his household members. But you look over on the right-hand side, and you'll notice that he's got friends, Chris Robinson, Jane Doe, Stephen Smith, and those people are also in our system as being having a relationship with the Puentes. We have another screen that would show any business relationships they may have if they work for a particular company, Orange Leap or B. Terrell Group, and we would easily and quickly know whether they work together or if they also served on a board of directors together. And you'll notice those are hyperlinks. And so you click in those and it can just take you from one person to the next very easily, and allows you to manage relationships, which again we said is a key component of that of your fundraising strategy. And so I think the next thing that we want to take a look at, if I'm not mistaken, we'll go to the next slide, and that is how working with your financial system can really give you the information you need to fulfill your mission. And Orange Leap works with a variety of we work with virtually any accounting system. Our friends at B. Terrell, they carry two great product lines. One is Sage, and the other is Intacct. Intacct is a cloud solution that we work very closely with, and we work with the Sage folks as well. But in our presentation today, I'm going to be showing you a real-time integration that we have to Intacct Cloud Financials. And the items that you're looking at on your screen, constituent and gift information, all that information comes across in real time into Intacct, as well as the places where the proper buckets in the general ledger, such as your project codes and your distribution codes and so forth. And so I'm going to show you a very brief demonstration of what that looks like as we go to our next slide. So this is a gift processing screen in Orange Leap. So we're in the Orange Leap system right now, and we have Brenda Carr. Brenda very well could have been a volunteer or maybe a volunteer, but she's never given us a donation yet, never given the organization a check. So this is her first time doing that, and you'll see that if you look in the lower left-hand corner, she's giving us $300, and it's going to go to the building fund. I will point out that she could have split that $300 into she could have distributed that in multiple ways, basically as many different designations as she would like. She could have had $100 go to the building fund, $100 go to the general fund, and perhaps $100 to some type of scholarship fund that the organization has. But in this particular case, we're going to put all $300 into the building fund. And when we go to the next screen, we'll be looking at an Intacct screen. And so, you'll notice it's a similar look and feel to Orange Leap. However, their colors are blue and ours are orange. But you'll see that what the account number was created automatically. Obviously, her name and her address and phone number information came across. And so all of that was created without ever having to be touched essentially by human hands, if you will. Another nice thing to point out is there in the kind of upper middle part of your screen on the right-hand side, it says OLOD Constituent. By clicking on that, you can easily pop back into the constituent screen inside Orange Leap if you wanted to do that for some reason. As we go to the next slide, we're going to take a look at a dashboard in the Intacct system. Intacct has extremely powerful dashboarding capabilities, as do most of the solutions on the market, but I really have a liking to the Intacct dashboard. This will give you a tool to bring across financial data and bring donor data and have it merged with your financial data. If you look at that first, the first upper quadrant talks about the building campaign, and it very easily you can very easily update your contributions against the expenses, and giving you information that you see in that kind of lower right-hand quadrant, which is the fundraising efficiency ratio. So if you have a campaign and you want to know how well you're performing in terms of bringing in your revenue or bringing in gifts versus what it costs to get those gifts, this is a great snapshot on how to do that. And this would be updated, could be updated and shown on a daily basis or up to the minute basis. But you couldn't do that if you didn't have the capability I've described, which is to move donor data into the financial system. So if we go to the next slide, we'll talk about how great it is to be able to just, without doing anything, let Orange Leap and Intacct work for you by putting that gift in the right buckets. If you'll notice, that $300 gift was both the debit and credit are shown there, and it was sent to the proper fund. If there had been any restrictions on that, that would have also been designated there. And I also would like to take your eye back up to the, again, kind of that right middle of the screen. You'll see it. There's two hyperlinks there. One is OLOD Constituent, and the other is OLOD Gift. In both cases, clicking on that would take you right back into the Orange Leap record for that particular gift. And I think we're going to wrap this slide up with the next slide up with a couple of things here. One is this is a blow up. If you'll recall the Intacct dashboard we saw earlier, this is kind of a blow up of the building campaign and the operating revenue versus expenditures. And when you're live in Intacct, you could click on that contribution number of 198,223. And you click on that to get the detail, which we'll see on our next slide. So this is an itemized list of all the gifts that have been given to that campaign. And if you'll draw your eye down to the very last one, there's our gift of $300 that was given by Ms. Carr. And so you can see that you can very easily move data from Orange Leap into an accounting system, in this case Intacct, and just the power that this has by showing you the dashboards in either system. And so if we just summarize what we've seen today, we've seen a very powerful demonstration of how business rules can work and help you in the life cycle all along the path of your strategies, and then the dashboarding capabilities, and then moving data seamlessly into your accounting system. So Brian, with that, I'm open for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Kent, and that was a great presentation and great information, and it looks like we do have a couple of questions for you. Number one, how possible is it for the end user or the not-for-profit to change or add fields to the user screen?
Well, that's a great question. We have extreme flexibility inside Orange Leap. It's very easy to change fields. It's very easy to change those profiles, the drop downs. Just about anything that you need to have changed on the screen can be changed. We also have the ability to write additional functionality fairly easily without touching a line of the Java code. And as an example, we've built out some really neat, exciting modules for sponsorships for organizations that sponsor children, for organizations that take mission trips, and similar organizations that have other things that they need done. So it's very flexible and easy to change.
Okay. Another question: how can Orange Leap help me manage my volunteers?
Well, in our limited time, I certainly didn't have a chance to show you everything. And one of the other modules that we have is an extremely robust. Can provide you a wealth of information on who's available, what their skill sets are, and managing kind of the block of time that you would want them to work. And so it's just a great component of along with other modules that we have. I touched on some of the others, but there's a lot more to show about Orange Leap, and we would love to have the opportunity to do that in more detail if you've got someone that's interested, Brian.
Okay. And this might even fall in that same bucket, or the answer to this question might fall in that same bucket. My organization receives a lot of grants. Can Orange Leap help with those?
Well, you're right. It does. We have a grants management module that really helps that grant cycle. I mean, if you stop and think about it, a grant is simply just another way to, donate. So it's definitely part of our solution. We help that grant life cycle, both before the grant and after. And then what we also do really, really well, in particular with Intacct, is in conjunction with the accounting system, is to send over that grant information, or it could be a grant receivable in some cases. And between what we do and what Intacct does on their side, it's a beautiful system for managing grants.
Okay, good. And then a final question here: how much is Orange Leap? What size organizations do you work with?
Well, I think the great thing about Orange Leap is that we can work with the smallest organizations or the largest, and we can do that equally well. We have organizations here in the Dallas area that are small organizations like Dallas Contemporary Museum, which great group of people, and they've used our product for a number of years. And then we have people like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, who have 5 million constituents, and we're in the process of rolling out to a number of their locations throughout the country. And so we really can work with organizations of all sizes. Our pricing model is pretty simple. It's roughly $100 a month per user. There could be some slight additional charges for some of those other modules that I talked about, but by and large, it's about $100 a month subscription per user. And then, of course, depending on the size of the organization and the number of records that they need to have converted, that will vary in terms of what the implementation costs are. But what we found is that if somebody wants Orange Leap, we can usually find a way to help them. Working with people like you, Brian, help them out and get them on the road to success.
Excellent. Excellent answer. Excellent presentation. I'd like to thank you, Kent, as well as those of you in attendance today for taking time out of your day to help us with this webinar, Kent, and then also to join us for this webinar attendees. We hope you've learned some valuable insight about improving the donor life cycle. At least I know I have. Please feel free to reach out to us at info@bterrell.com for follow-up questions about what we discussed today, or as Kent mentioned, some of those things that we didn't have time for. On behalf of Kent Hallra with Orange Leap and all the fine folks here at B. Terrell Group, thank you very much.